A mother and her two young children are dead. Their killer is still on the loose.
Take a look at this house, nestled on a quiet, low-traffic street. At first glance, it blends right in with the neighboring homes, calm, peaceful, and unassuming. But for many locals, this place holds memories of an unsettling event that occurred here back in 2012.
I have two little ones the same age, and I couldn't even imagine what happened here.
Heather Jackson and her two young children once called this house their home. One day, when Heather stopped responding to calls and messages, her friends and mother grew concerned and reached out to local authorities. An officer arrived, knocked on the door, and looked through the windows. Seeing nothing out of the ordinary, they left. But Heather's friends knew something didn't feel right. Her silence was unlike her. Other small but unsettling signs began to add up. Eventually, friends entered the house and immediately contacted emergency services. Today, we'll take a closer look at a deeply saddening case that shook the quiet town of Sandusky, Ohio. But before we dive into the story, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let's get started. In 2012, Heather was just 23 years old. She was the loving mother of two young children, 3-year-old Selena and 1-year-old Wayne Jr. When she moved into this peaceful home, just a mile from Lake Erie, it felt like a fresh start. Heather had recently separated from her husband Wayne and was navigating life as a single parent. Although they had once been high school sweethearts, the challenges of young parenthood eventually led to their separation. Despite the difficulties, Heather was devoted to building a happy life for her children. On the afternoon of the 8th of September, 2012, her close friend Danielle Sorrell stopped by as planned. But no one answered the door. Danielle checked around the house, all doors were locked, and there was no sign of Heather or the kids. This was strange. Even if plans had changed, Heather would have let someone know. Worried, Danielle contacted Heather's mother, Jody, who was also unable to reach her daughter. The two were very close and spoke every day, so this sudden silence felt troubling. Danielle reached out to mutual friends, but no one had heard from Heather. Then, Danielle noticed something small but significant: Selena's pacifier left behind on the porch. She knew Heather wouldn't leave home with the children without it. As more time passed, with no word from Heather, Jody's concern grew. She eventually contacted the police to request a welfare check. The officers arrived at the address and knocked on the door, but there was no response. They walked around the property, looked through the windows, and saw nothing out of the ordinary. There were no visible signs of anything unusual, and without any clear reason to enter, they followed standard procedure and left the scene. Around 7:30 p.m., two of Heather's friends, Thomas Hansen and Dan Risner, arrived at her home after hearing she hadn't been seen or heard from all day. They knocked on the front door, but received no response. Concerned, Risner checked the back entrance, managed to get inside, and the two began looking around. Upon entering, they made a deeply distressing discovery and immediately contacted emergency services.
No. Okay, I walked in the back door because I thought I heard someone come in, get in the body under the mattress.
And there's a what?
A body, a person's body, a deceased person.
Sergeant Eric Graybill, a Sandusky police officer, responded to Heather Jackson's residence and entered the home. In the bedroom, Heather was found in a very concerning position, partially hidden between the mattress and box spring, with something wrapped around her neck. The television was still on, but there was no sign of the children. Their room was empty. As officers carefully continued their walkthrough of the home, they noticed a door leading to a small utility closet. It was the only area they hadn't checked. When Sergeant Eric Graybill opened the door, he saw several stacked boxes and various stored items. Behind the stacked boxes in the utility closet, officers made a heartbreaking discovery: the two young children were found unresponsive. The home was immediately secured by authorities, and an investigation was launched. This was one of the most distressing scenes local law enforcement had ever encountered. Officers and investigators were deeply shaken, struggling to comprehend how such a tragedy could have happened to an innocent family. Heather's loved ones were devastated, and the situation only became more difficult as the medical findings were shared. According to court documents, Dr. Diana Scala Barnett, deputy coroner for Lucas County, performed the medical examinations. She determined that Heather and her children passed away due to asphyxiation. Certain findings raised serious concerns and indicated that further investigation was necessary to understand the full circumstances surrounding their deaths. Julie Cox, a forensic expert from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, also conducted testing on key evidence, which provided important clues. Her analysis would later play a significant role in the case. Driven by the urgency to find answers, authorities began piecing together the timeline. Heather's house was located near Firelands Regional Medical Center, and investigators hoped surveillance footage from the hospital's cameras might help identify who was responsible. When investigators reviewed the nearby CCTV footage, they spotted a vehicle arriving at Heather's home around 10:57 p.m. Due to the distance of the camera and the low lighting, it was difficult to make out any specific details, only the headlights were clearly visible. The car backed into the driveway and remained there for several minutes. At 11:08 p.m., the headlights turned on again, and the vehicle was seen leaving the area. Meanwhile, Thomas Hansen and Dan Risner, the individuals who initially entered Heather's home and discovered something was wrong, were taken to the police station for further discussion. They were interviewed separately, starting with Dan Risner, who had made the emergency call. Dan explained that he and Heather were friends, and upon hearing that she hadn't been in contact, he decided to check on her. He mentioned needing to push the back door to gain entry, as no one was responding. Since he had been inside the house during the discovery, police asked Dan to provide a DNA sample, which he agreed to without hesitation. After the sample was collected, he was allowed to leave. Next, investigators spoke with Thomas Hansen. He shared that he had spoken to Heather on the phone the previous night and was near her house around 11 p.m. According to Thomas, he drove to her place, had a brief conversation with her outside, and then left. This helped police identify the vehicle seen in the CCTV footage. It belonged to Thomas. He also mentioned that Heather was not alone that night. Another individual, someone he knew by the name Josh, was also there. Thomas gave a consistent account with Dan's and voluntarily provided a DNA sample before being released. Investigators then shifted focus to the person last seen with Heather Josh case. They quickly located him and invited him in for questioning. Josh confirmed that he had known Heather for a few years and had been at her home that night. According to his statement, they spent time watching television while the children were asleep. He also shared that he went out briefly to buy breakfast items and returned to the house, later leaving around 1 a.m. when a friend picked him up. He acknowledged that he and Heather had a close personal relationship. To verify Josh's story, investigators visited the store he mentioned and reviewed the available CCTV footage. It turned out that Josh was telling the truth. He entered the store at 11:20 p.m. and did exactly what he said. Josh Case's account was verified through surveillance footage, but his presence at the store didn't completely rule him out as a potential person of interest. Since he was the last individual known to have been in contact with Heather, investigators continued to focus on him as a key figure in the case. He cooperated with authorities and voluntarily provided a DNA sample. Laboratory analysis revealed that neither Thomas Hansen nor Dan Risner were involved in the incident, as their DNA did not match any of the evidence collected. Josh Case's DNA was found on Heather, which aligned with his earlier statement that they had a consensual relationship. However, his DNA was not found in connection to the children, which indicated that another individual may have been present in the home that night. Investigators also ruled out Heather's husband, Wayne, as he was living in another state during that time and had no connection to the immediate events. Attention then turned to Heather's phone activity. Her phone records showed she had been in contact with several people throughout the evening, including one final phone call at 3:12 a.m., which lasted only 30 seconds. Investigators now needed to identify the person behind that number. Just 36 hours after Heather's passing, investigators obtained another piece of surveillance footage, which they hoped would provide additional clues to help solve the case. While reviewing the footage, investigators noticed a white car arriving at Heather's home around 3 o'clock. Right, around the time she stopped using her phone. This timing raised further questions, as it could be more than just a coincidence. The same vehicle was seen leaving about an hour later. By then, a tragic event had likely already occurred. Due to the limited video quality, officers couldn't make out the license plate, but they were able to identify the vehicle as a Cadillac. After investigators obtained information from the phone company about the last number Heather called, they identified the person on the other end, 41-year-old Curtis Clinton. It was with him that Heather had a brief 30-second call at 3:12 a.m. A background check revealed that Clinton had a criminal record. He had been released from prison in February after serving time for serious offenses. Authorities noted that a previous case involving him shared some concerning similarities with the current situation. The fact that he had only been out of prison for 6 months before this tragic incident raised serious concerns among investigators. Adding to their suspicion, Clinton also owned a white Cadillac, the same type of vehicle seen near Heather's home. At this point, Curtis Clinton became a key person of interest, and officers prioritized locating him quickly. If he was involved, they needed to act swiftly to prevent any further harm. Police visited his last known address, but did not find him there. A few hours later, officers located a white Cadillac parked on a nearby street, but Clinton was not present. Upon searching the vehicle, they discovered a receipt from a gas station dated the night of the incident. Investigators then headed to that gas station to review its surveillance footage. On the recordings, they saw both Clinton and his white Cadillac. He bought water and beer and behaved calmly. By this time, Heather and her children were already dead. Investigators were initially concerned that Curtis Clinton might have fled. However, they soon received word that someone with his name had been admitted to a local hospital. Officers went there immediately and found him. Clinton was taken into custody and brought to the station for questioning. During the interview, Clinton denied having anything to do with what happened to Heather Jackson and her children. He claimed that he and Heather had been in a relationship for around 5 months and that they were close. According to Clinton, Heather was going through a difficult time and had turned to him for emotional and financial support. He said that he didn't know her children well, and the last time he saw Heather was on the 6th of September. He said he gave her money and they spent some time together. However, when officers brought up phone records showing a call between them at 3:12 a.m. on the 8th of September, Clinton changed his timeline, saying he may have been mistaken and had actually seen her later than he remembered. He claimed he didn't stay long during that visit. When asked about what happened after he left, Clinton suggested someone else may have come over after him. Despite his denials, forensic evidence told a different story. Investigators matched DNA found at the scene to Curtis Clinton, leading to his arrest. While in custody, he spoke to his mother in a recorded phone call, during which he expressed confusion and regret, saying he wished he had sought help earlier. His mother replied that they should have encouraged him to stay on his treatment plan. Clinton responded, "I just thought I was over it. I didn't think it would happen again." He then added, "I'll just go in and plead guilty and let them do what they want." Authorities charged Clinton with multiple serious offenses. During the investigation, they also uncovered another disturbing incident involving a 17-year-old girl, which had occurred just 6 days prior to Heather's death. The victim came forward, and forensic evidence from that case also pointed to Clinton. Clinton later requested a change of trial location, claiming that media coverage had influenced public opinion. However, the court denied the motion, stating that despite the coverage, a fair trial could still be held. When the trial concluded, the jury recommended the most serious sentence available under the law. Clinton was sentenced to death for each life lost in the case. Additionally, he received a life sentence without parole for actions involving Heather's youngest child, and another 10 years for the earlier case involving the teenager. During sentencing, Clinton showed no remorse and instead addressed the prosecutor with defiance. His lack of accountability drew strong reactions from those in the courtroom, particularly from Heather's family, who were heartbroken and angry. Emotions ran high, and authorities had to intervene when tensions escalated. In 2018, Clinton's scheduled execution was postponed by the Ohio Supreme Court, pending further legal proceedings. As of now, he remains on death row. Due to an ongoing pause in executions within the state, it's unlikely that this sentence will be carried out in the near future. Governor Mike DeWine has stated that no executions are expected during the remainder of his term, partly due to concerns from pharmaceutical companies about the use of their drugs in executions. And that brings us to the end of this case. What are your thoughts on this tragic story? Let us know in the comments. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, feel free to suggest it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life cases. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.